What's going on, guys? Hi, T here. I thought I would take a little break from my usual sexy video compilation and start doing something with deepfake videos. One of the biggest questions that you see when making these videos is about the workflow process. So I thought I would take the opportunity to share my workflow process, what I found to work pretty well, as well as, how should we say, women eating bananas. Let's call it that. That's a big question on there. How exactly do you accomplish that? How do you do the masking? How do you produce a good result? And I'll also share my workflow for how I do that. Now we're going to be using this video here as our target video. As you can see, this lovely girl eating a banana. And we're going to use this as the source, the lovely Angie Griffin. And what we're going to do is we're going to place Angie's face on the target video. So let's go ahead and quickly go through the basics. So as you can see, we have our target file here. And what we'll do is drop down into the DFL root menu, and we will do a extract full DPS, or FPS frames per second. And with the magic of video, we are done. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to extract the face set. So we're doing an automatic face set extract. Select GPU, make sure and select whole face. We want to do whole face for this, not head, not partial face. So select the default options, so 512, 90% JPEG, and let it run. This process does take a little bit of time, so we will definitely speed this up. One thing I should mention, when you're doing this kind of work, you definitely want to be running MSI Afterburner so you can control the heat of your GPU. Personally, I like to keep my GPUs below 65C. I know they can run a lot hotter than that, but keep them at 65C or below, and they will last a lot longer. So I want to manually set my fan speed to about 69. That's a good number. And that should keep the GPU temperature well below 65C. And this process isn't nearly as intensive as when you're training the model, but it still will get your GPU pretty warm. So you want to make sure and keep those GPU temps as low as possible. And just like that, we're done. That took about 15 minutes to run through there. So that gives you a rough idea of what kind of time you're looking at in order to process that. So we'll go ahead and close this. And now we're going to take a look at the alignments. So now we're looking at the extracted face sets. And what we're looking for are images that didn't extract properly. And you'll be able to tell because the alignment will be all messed up. And you're also looking for images that you don't want. If there are multiple subjects in the video, then it's going to be grabbing all the faces it finds. And you want to eliminate the ones you don't want. And here you can see here's a bad extract right here. So we'll have to go through and fix that. That takes us to the next step in the process, and we're going to go to the aligned debug folder, and that will allow us to actually look at the masks that it grabbed. Okay, so we jump over to the aligned debug folder, and I use an add-on application called Image Glass because it allows you to get a much closer view, and you can use the arrow keys to quickly scroll through, and you can inspect the mask. You can see this is what a perfect mask looks like. So we want to quickly scroll through, and we want to locate any missing masks and any images where the mask is messed up, and you'll be able to tell. Okay, so here's a missing mask. You can see the algorithm failed to detect the face. And what do we want to do here is delete this image. And then we continue searching through the images. And by deleting the images, we're then going to run a routine. And here's another one. And we'll go ahead and delete this one. And when we're done kicking all these out, then we'll go ahead and run the process which will allow us to manually reselect any images that you delete from the aligned debug file. Now here's an example of a bad mask, and what we want to do is we want to eliminate those as well. And we're done. Now we're going to drop back to the DFL root folder, and we are going to select the option for Data DST Facet Manual Re-Extract Aligned Debug. And that's going to allow us to manually remask all of the images that we deleted out of the debug folder. And again, we're just selecting default options here. Now, if you did something different in your original extract, you're going to want to mimic that here. But otherwise, if you went with default, we're good. And here we have the first image that we deleted. So we will go ahead and put the little blue box over it until it gives us a nice face. Don't worry if there's stuff in front. We want the mask where the face needs to be. And we will go back in and we will create another mask to remove obstructions later on. Now, some images like this one here are really difficult to get the face detect to lock on. There's just not enough face there, and it can't tell what it's looking at. So you really have to try and change the box size and fish around. Sometimes you can find just that one pixel that will get, like right there, that one pixel that'll give you a good mask. And I mean, sometimes you are literally just moving one little pixel at a time to get the right mask. Okay, so we're done, and now it will go through and finish re-extracting all of those faces that you just remasked. All right, now comes the fun part. Now we're going to create the Xseg masks. So we click on Data DST Mask, and it's the Xseg Data DST Mask, that is. Bring up the Xseg editor. Now there are currently no masks in here, so we're going to be creating them from scratch. And you just go and trace out the whole face. You want to trace out right to the edge of the hair or where there is a heavy shadow line, because that's what you want to replace with the source face. So just carefully go around and trace the face. Don't worry if it's not perfect. You can always go back and move the little dots, the little anchor points after you're done. So, and you'll play around with this. You'll figure out how the tool works. It's not great, but it's not terrible. So go around, get the face lined up perfectly. And this is important because when you're doing a whole face replacement, it looks so much better than if you just do a partial face. If you do a partial face replacement, and the resolution isn't high enough, or there's a significant difference in the resolution between the source file and the target file, it's going to look really bad. It's going to look like there is a mask glued onto the target file's face. Now in this case, you can see there's an obstruction, and what I'm doing is just masking around the obstruction, just real simple. And that's basically the trick right there. That's how you get rid of obstructions, whether it be a banana or something else. You can't really see it, but her fingers are there. You can see it in a kind of blurred image. So I masked around that too. Otherwise, it's going to look funny because her fingers will disappear and her face will appear to be over her fingers. You don't have to mask every single image. What you're looking for is anytime you have any kind of a transition, anytime you have a different face angle, anytime you have anything new obstructing the face, go ahead and throw a mask on there. If you have 1,000 images, you might make 10 masks to start off with. So we'll go through and we'll go ahead and take care of that now. All right, and now we're to the part everybody's been waiting for, the banana. Now when you're doing this kind of masking, you have two options. You can mask to simply exclude the banana, or you can mask to also exclude the mouth and lips. Now the reason that you might want to do that is because you might want an image of the mouth, of what's in the mouth, any residue. So it would look a lot better if you masked around the lips, because otherwise you're going to have this weird transition at the lips. Now in this case, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and replace her lips. So what I'm doing is I'm masking to include her whole face, and you create an indentation for the mouth, as it progresses. So the lips, the mouth, everything will be replaced by the source image. And as I said, depending on what you're doing, you would just move these dots and outline around the edge of her lips where it transitions from her lips to her face. That's the only difference. So we'll go ahead and continue with this. And as we reach the point of, well, we'll call it interface, we're going to do something a little bit different. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and continue masking out the banana. So we mask around her face. And I should mention that that is the include mask, what we're doing right now. Anything that is included will be replaced by the source. Anything that is excluded is basically being masked out. So if there's something in front of her face, you either mask around it or you switch to the exclude mask. And what it will do is it will still align the face, the source face, onto the target face properly, but it'll just exclude that portion so that it appears to be on top or inside. Okay, and here's the point at which we're going to do something different. This is be the exact same process that I was mentioning before, where you're actually going to exclude the lips. So what you'll do in this case is you'll mask so that the lips are excluded, just like this. And the reason you want to do that is because you want to capture, you want to retain what's in the mouth and the interface point, because that's going to be the most realistic image, and that's how you accomplish that. So you very carefully mask around the lips. If the lips are really pronounced, if there's lipstick, you want to make sure and catch it right at the edge where it transitions to her face, and that's where you're going to want to put this mask, and that's how you will achieve the desired result. And we're done. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and train the mask. We don't want to train too much. We only want to train it to about 300 or so iterations. We just want enough so that it basically goes through and creates Xseg masks for every single one of the images. So we open the trainer and just did basically just one thing. You select your GPU. It won't run nearly as hot as when you were extracting the face set, but still keep an eye on your GPU temps and go ahead and run the trainer. Alright, so here's the mask preview window, and I don't know why, but sometimes you'll get these really weird kind of squished images. Don't worry about it. Here you can see the source images, and you can see the resulting masks that it is creating. And here you can see it cooking up the destination masks. So clearly you need to do the same process with the source images that you did with creating masks for the destination images. I only showed it for the destination images. As I said, we want to get to about 300 iterations, and then we're going to check and see how the computer-generated masks are faring. So to stop the process, we simply hit enter, and it will save the model, and we can go and then examine what was produced. So at this point, the mask is trained, but what we need to do is apply it. If you don't apply it, then the mask isn't doing anything. So we simply click on apply here, and then it will go through and apply the mask to the images and save it to the model. So the workflow is edit, train, apply, and then you go and look at the masks, make any corrections or additions, and then you repeat. So edit, train, apply, edit, train, apply. You keep doing that until you get to a state where you're happy with it. Then you actually proceed to the next step, which would be to train the SAE. Okay, so we've applied the masks and now we're going to repeat the process. We go back to edit. This will bring up the Xseg edit window again. Here we go. Now what we do is we're going to click on this little icon here, which will show us the masks. Then the green outline allows us to see the mask was created. And then this will show us the Xseg masks. This is what was generated when we went through that training process. This is the shaded part there. So now we just scroll through it and we can see that looks pretty good. It's rough and we expect it to be. And you can see from where we applied masks here, and you see it created the shading around the lines we drew, and here, see, and then the rest of them it just learns and fills in between. So what we do is we step through and look at these images, and what we're doing is we're looking for anywhere the mask is not right. Either something isn't masked properly, it's including something it shouldn't, or excluding something it shouldn't. Right here is a good indication of that. See, the finger isn't completely masked out. So we'll go ahead and turn that mask off so that we can see the full image, and we'll go ahead and create a new mask here. So this is basically the same process as before. We simply go in and create masks. The only difference is that this time we're going and correcting any of the masks that were created by the Xseg trainer. And in so doing, helps it refine how it is able to learn the masks. Because when you have something like this, where you have a really low contrast, it can't tell what it's supposed to include and what it's not supposed to include. And so by creating additional masks, you're helping it to refine its learning process so that it can go through and do a better job on subsequent passes. Okay, so we'll turn the Xseg mask back on and see how it looks. Here you can see this is what we're trying to fix, and this is what it should look like. So that should help the trainer figure out what it needs to do. Okay, for this one, let's do something a little bit different. As you can see, the hand is not masked properly, and it's blocking the face, but it's really not clearly defined, so it would be really hard to try and draw around it with the include mask. So instead what we'll do, we'll go ahead and draw the include mask. Let's go ahead and exclude the banana. But otherwise we're just going to draw it around the face. We're not going to worry about trying to exclude the hand. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use an exclude mask to mask out the hand. So we go ahead and draw where the face is under the hand. Looks good. Okay. Right. Okay. And now we're going to switch to the exclude mask. And we simply draw around the hand. And it's the same thing as if we had excluded it with the other mask. This just tells it explicitly, don't include this. And this works really well if you've got stuff inside the mask, maybe little droplets of milk or something on her face that you want to exclude. This is how you do it. We'll just go through and finish this here. On the outside of the include mask, you don't have to be pretty. It doesn't matter. It's only the inside part that matters. Okay, let's see how that looks. All right, that should fix that pretty well. Good. Now we'll just go through and finish the rest of these. You can see here that needs a little fixing up right there. Hope you don't mind the dead air here, but I wanted to leave the video showing the process, and I hate shitty background music. All right, and we're done. Now we're going to head back to the trainer and let it run through another round of training. This time, we're going to let it run for about 3,000 iterations. That'll pick up the new masks that you drew, and it'll also help refine the existing masks. And then when we come back for our third pass, it should need a little bit of fine tuning, but depending on what you're trying to do, sometimes you don't even need a third pass. Okay, so once again, we hit enter to save. Then we're going to go in, apply the mask, and then go back to edit. Okay, let's take a look at the images. All right, these are looking good. Scanning through these real quick. Okay, here's something that needs to be fixed. Clearly we don't want her face transposed over the banana. So let's go ahead and mask this out real quick. Okay, that looks good. Let's continue. All right, that's something else that needs to be fixed right there. Let's go ahead and fix that one. And at this point, you get the idea. So I'll go ahead and run the rest of these at high speed. And we're done. So we'll go ahead and run the training process again. And since you've already seen this whole thing, let's just jump straight to it. Okay, and these masks are starting to look a lot better. You can see that they're clearly defined. You can see where the fingers are masked out. That's going to be real good. A little fuzzy there at the top, but that's okay. That won't be a problem. So yeah, I think one more pass and we will have it. Okay, so once again, apply the masks and then go into the Xseg editor and let's inspect the final product. Okay, when you see stuff like this, don't even worry about it because it doesn't matter if it's her skin or the skin of the source, you won't notice the difference. It's only when you have something that goes over a feature, lips, eyes, something like that, that you need to fix. So this looks pretty good. Okay, we are all done with masking. So it is now time to train the model. So we click on the SAE HD train. Now this model I got off of Mr. Deepfakes. It's already pre-trained, so we don't need to mess with any of that. All we need to do is adjust some of the settings. So let's see here. Looks good. Okay, this one we set to 0. We don't want a target iteration. We just want it to run until we stop it. For this, we're just going to leave it as default. You can flip faces if you want to, if you don't have a lot of source images. Same thing with the destination images. I'm just going to leave this as default. Batch size I can increase because I'm running a 3090. You play with that to find which batch size works best for you. Mask training, this is the most important one. If you do not select yes, it will not pick up all those masks that you spent all that time working on. I do this last. If I want it, I'll come back and I'll turn it on after I've already trained up, but for right now I set it to no. The rest of this stuff pretty much is just going to take a lot of the default options. I don't know what the add a belief stuff is. I haven't gotten into that. I haven't been able to research and figure out what it is. If it's on, I leave it on. Random warp of samples is a good one to turn on when you're first training a face. It will, well, what it sounds like, it just randomly warps them and it tries to improve the model in that fashion. So I always turn that on. GAN power set to 0 when you first start out. After you've trained up a lot of iterations, you can come back on and turn it on to get a more refined look. Color transfer, that's another one. I tend to just leave that as none. Gradient clipping, leave that as to whatever default is, usually no. And pre-training, definitely no. Okay, now we're going to let it run. Okay, so right off the bat, these look really good. You can see the source face and you can see what it's coming up with just based on the pre-trained model. These have never been trained together before. So this actually looks pretty good. Usually when you first start out training new faces, the result looks like mashed potatoes. Important here, you definitely want to kick your fan speed up. I usually set mine to about 90. I like to keep my temps down. So, and this is going to be running for many hours. So I'm definitely going to kick that up. Want to keep those temps below 65°C. Okay, so real quick, I just want to take a look at the other previews and see how they are looking. This one's looking good. That's not too bad. It's a little fuzzy, but it's not terrible. Okay, here we go. Mashed potatoes. That's exactly what I'm talking about right there. So yeah, we've got some work to do. All right, we're just going to let this run for many hours. I don't have a particular iteration in mind. I'm going to wait. What I usually do is let these numbers settle down into 0.05, 0.04. There's no perfect number, but the lower the number, the better. But there's no perfect target number. So you really just got to go by the result preview and see how that looks. And we're back. And this has been running for about 4 hours and about 32,000 iterations. You can see the blue and the yellow plots, whatever you want to call them, how much variation they had before. And at the very end there, you can see how they've really trimmed down a lot in that period of time. The previews still look a little bit rough, but that's okay. We're going to go ahead and take a look at it now because I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. I don't really plan on making this a super fine model. This one here still mashed potatoes, but I think we'll be okay. So let's go ahead and get to the merge and see how that's done. Okay, here's the merge menu. Hit tab to bring us to the preview window, and this actually looks pretty good. Right now we're using the overlay mode. There are 4 different modes activated by hitting keys 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, actually there's 6, actually 7, but you're only going to use 4 of them anyway. So, okay, we're going to switch to seamless. All right, looks about the same. Okay, let's switch to seamless with histogram match, and right away we can see that the color blending option doesn't work. This is the color transfer mode. So we're going to hit C to change the transfer mode. Now we're on LCT, and as you can see, that looks a lot better. So when you're initially going through these, you're going to be playing with the mode, the mask mode, and the color transfer. Think of those as your coarse adjustments. I don't know exactly what they do. I'm sure you can look on Mr. Deepfakes and find a lengthy explanation of what they do. But for now, just play around with them and see what works best. So this is the mask mode that I use most often. I find that it generally gives the best results, so when I'm starting out, I'll select this as my mask mode, and then you hold down Shift and then the slash, and what it'll do is it will carry that out to all of the rest of the frames. And then what I do is go through and look at them frame by frame and make any adjustments that I need to make then. But for the most part, this is a good starting point. And anytime I make a change, I go back through and play with the color a bit, the color transfer mode. Some color transfer modes work better with certain mask modes, so you just kind of got to play around with it and find out what looks the best. Okay, once you've got a good baseline, you want to start stepping through the frames. You need to go frame by frame. You don't have to inspect every single frame, but you can at least scroll forward and see how it looks. I don't expect the front view to look much different, but once we start getting to the point where the fingers are in front of the face or the banana is in front of the face, that's when you're going to start seeing how you did with your masking. And like right there, that looks really good. And you can see the finger blur. That looks really good. You don't see any kind of jittering with the face or anything like that, so I think we did a good job here. Okay, we're going to quickly scroll forward to the part that everybody's waiting for. And here we are. Let's see how it looks. You can see the transition there. There's no blur. There's no jittering. That looks good. Keep going, keep going. Very nice. All right, right here, especially as it gets closer. Okay, you can see a little bit of jittering with the eyes. That one's a hard one to get on your first pass. If you want to refine that, that's where you're going to want to go back through and do the focus on eyes and mouth, and that will fix that a lot. But you can see there's no problem here. This looks completely seamless. A little bit of jittering with the mouth on that one frame, but otherwise this looks really good. Okay, let's go ahead and jump ahead to the final product, and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. And here we are, and this looks really good. This is not bad for just a little bit of mask work and 4 hours of training. This was a really good match between these two, and you can see that it looks really, really good. If it wasn't for a little bit of jitter every once in a while, you wouldn't be able to tell that this had been deep faked. Okay, and let's see how the profile looks, because this is where, yeah, there's a little bit of jitter there. That can be fixed with more training, with focus on eyes and mouth, but otherwise it looks really, really good. That shot right there, you can see the eyes, all the detail in the eyes, the mouth, and this is just with minimal effort. You can imagine if you spent a lot of time on this, you could accomplish one of those stunning results that you've seen on other YouTube videos. So that's it. That's up for my tutorial for right now. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. Otherwise, have fun.